Tonight's lesson is on 3.4, proving lines are parallel. So far we've studied the angle relationships that occur when we have parallel lines and those kinds of things. So now we're going to look at our lines parallel. So before we said, okay, we have parallel lines, so therefore we have corresponding angles or alternate interior angles that are congruent and so on. But today we're looking at these proofs or these theorems that say if two lines are cut by a transversal so that corresponding angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. So now we're saying if we have the angles that are congruent, then we can conclude that we have parallel lines. So then we have the same thing about consecutive interior angles that are supplementary, and then alternate interior angles that are congruent. So make sure you have those written down in your notes and that you understand what those are. So we're basically looking at the converse of each of the theorems that we looked at before. A couple examples I want to look at with you. This first one I've done for you. Example number 1, you have this shape. And remember, I've said to you in the past, you cannot assume something about a picture without knowing about it. So this looks like it's probably a parallelogram, but we cannot just assume that. So we are given that angle 5 is congruent to angle 6 and that angle 6 is congruent to angle 4. So knowing that and having those two givens, we can say that angle 4 has to be congruent to angle 5 using the transitive property. So now we have 4, 5, and 6 that are all congruent to each other. So if I can prove that AD is parallel to BC, then I probably can determine that that shape is a parallelogram. I'd only have to conclude then that AB is parallel to DC. Not something I'm asking you to do here, but that would be the next step in that. So are AD and BC parallel? And the answer is yes, because there are two lines that are cut by a transversal, and they have alternate interior angles that are congruent, because 4 and 5 are congruent to each other, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. And the transversal is AB. Sometimes it helps if you extend those lines beyond the transversal. It just makes it kind of seem a little bit more obvious. So you can go ahead and do that if you'd like. All right. Then here's a problem for you. Number 2. If we have these two lines cut by the transversal, I want to know what can x be so that those two lines are parallel to each other. So those would be alternate interior angles. They have to be congruent, so we have to solve for x so that those lines are parallel. Okay, last problem here. Holy cow, there's a lot of lines and a lot of angle measurements here. My question to you is AB parallel to DC, and is BC parallel to AD? Not only are you to write yes or no for those questions, but I want to know why. So don't just say yes, they're parallel, or no, they're not. I want to know yes, they are because, and then why. Or no, they're not because, and then why. So make sure you answer more than just yes or no for those questions. If you do just answer yes and no, you will not receive full credit for this assignment. All right? Have a good night. See you tomorrow.